This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. Remember when your community could turn to a local TV station or newspaper for the latest updates and affordable ads? Those days may be fading, but the need for local connection remains. That's why we created Bringing Local Back, a game-changing platform that restores local visibility and advertising power to your community. It's more than just tech. It's about driving engagement and creating new revenue for your chamber. Ready to see the future? Visit bringinglocalback.com to schedule your demo today. This is the future of local commerce. Our guest for this episode is Candace Carnahan. Candace is a relationship-driven, solution-oriented leader with a passion for putting strategy into action. As the president and CEO of the Grand Junction Area of Chamber of Commerce, she is committed to fostering a thriving business climate in Western Colorado through advocacy, innovative partnerships, and forward-thinking initiatives that benefit the local businesses the Chamber serves. Candace is a board member of WACE and a graduate of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Business Leads Fellowship, which focuses on the critical connection between K-12 education and workforce development. A Grand Junction native and graduate of Central High School, Candace enjoys golfing, hiking with her dog Harlow, and spending time with her husband of 20 years. Candace, I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I'd love to give you a moment to say hello to all the Chamber champions who are out there listening and to share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
Yes, Brandon, thank you so much for having me. I think that it alluded to it a little bit in my bio there, but I think something that a lot of people find interesting is that I'm able to act in this leadership role in a community that I was born and raised in. And so went out and had my adventures growing up, but to come back and serve the community that my family continues to have deep roots in is such an honor, and quite frankly makes the work just that much more rewarding to know that this is a place that I've called home for a very long time.
You are like a poster child for workforce development, right? You grow up in the community, you leave, get your education, but you come back, right? That's what we want them all to do.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about the Grand Junction Area Chamber, just to give us an idea of size, staff, scope of work, budget, to kind of set the stage for our discussion today.
Absolutely. So our chamber is located, it's about the last thing you hit between Denver and Utah. So we're on that western edge of Colorado. We are honored to represent nearly 800 businesses here locally as investors in our chamber that represent almost 45,000 employees. But we also make sure to support the region in a number of different efforts, whether it's workforce development and policy as well. So we currently have a full-time team of 6 here at our chamber, and our budget is just over $800,000 annually.
All right, that's perfect. Set the stage for our discussion today. And I'm excited to dive into our discussion. It's not the typical type of conversation that we have on the podcast, but it's something that I think is important for every chamber staff to listen to and to really lean into, and that's the art of curiosity. And we'll dive in deeper on that. I'm curious to learn your approach on this as soon as we get back from this quick break.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Rose.
And we're the founders of App My Community, a mobile app that can be customized to meet the unique needs of your Chamber of Commerce.
When we started App My Community, we envisioned a tool that would help communities thrive by simplifying communication and enhancing engagement. Chambers of Commerce face unique challenges, and we're here to help you tackle them.
App My Community helps the Evergreen Area Chamber of Commerce to create an app that keeps tourists informed even when their office is closed. They provide 24/7 access to local business information, which helps support the local economy and community engagement.
In Rocky Mountain House, we helped Rocky Chamber create an app with dynamic itineraries and digital resources for tourists, increasing local business engagement. The app has become an essential tool for the community, promoting events and boosting visibility for local merchants.
Today, we empower more than 200 chambers of commerce, campgrounds, and RV resorts to streamline communication, informing members about events, sharing business updates, and providing a digital hub for the community, all in one convenient app.
When you partner with At My Community, our team works closely with you to create an app that meets your chamber's unique needs. As your community grows, our app evolves with you. We are here to ensure you engage effectively with your members and streamline your operations.
Schedule a demo today at atmycommunity.com.
We can't wait to meet you.
Chamber leaders, I know each of you works daily to boost your local economy and take your Chamber of Commerce to the next level. But let's face it, it takes funding, and lots of it. You need to know Resource Development Group. For 3 decades, they have been the premier economic development fundraising consulting firm dedicated to helping chambers of commerce and economic development organizations like yours thrive across the United States. Their expert team specializes in crafting customized fundraising strategies that drive tangible results so you'll be able to fully implement your community advancement and economic development strategies. Imagine having a partner who strives to understand your community's unique needs, brings national best practices to bear, and has the proven experience to secure millions of dollars in funding. Resource Development Group has successfully guided countless chambers of commerce in creating vibrant, sustainable economies. With their comprehensive suite of services, from campaign planning and execution to investor engagement management to best practice studies, RDG takes the guesswork out of fundraising. You'll receive personalized support and innovative solutions that make a real impact. Don't just take my word for it. Chambers of Commerce and EDO executives nationwide have praised RDG for their dedication, professionalism, and impressive track record of raising over $2 billion for their clients. Ready to see what Resource Development Group can do for your chamber? Visit them at rdgfundraising.com to learn more. Elevate your community, strengthen your chamber, and unlock new possibilities with Resource Development Group by your side. They build organizations that build communities.
Hey, chamber execs. Are you juggling ribbon cuttings, grant deadlines, membership renewals, and a rogue newsletter that just won't format? That's where Econ DevOps comes in. We're a virtual assistant agency built exclusively for chambers and EDOs. From social media to CRM cleanup, event planning to inbox management, we handle the behind-the-scenes work so you can focus on impact. And here's the best part. We don't just assign a random virtual assistant. We match you with someone who fits your workflow, your communication style, even your level of type A. Visit econdevops.com or email us at hello@econdevops.com and finally cross hire help off your to-do list. Econ DevOps, helping community champions make a bigger impact.
All right, Candace, we're back. So as I mentioned before the break, today we're talking about the art of curiosity. And I understand you've presented on this before at WACE, and granted, not everybody listening is a member of WACE. And like I mentioned before we hit record, to be honest, even going to conferences, we only really retain a percentage of whatever's presented. So it'll be great to have this documented and have it be shareable for chamber leaders throughout the country and really anywhere they are. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you and let us, give us an idea as you approach your work. How does curiosity come into it? How's it benefited you? What are some of those key things to think of? And just, start where you want to start from.
Yeah, Brandon, I think this is something that leaders in all industries could really lean on, especially with the climate that we find ourselves in as leaders these days. But as chamber executives, being curious is, in my mind, the only way to make sure that you are always focused on the right solutions and the right problems. It is so easy to get caught up in complex community issues, workforce challenges, policy debates. And if you aren't crystal clear on the work that needs to be done and why it needs to be done, it's going to make our job that much harder, and it's already hard enough. And so I actually got advice really early on in my role here as CEO, and it was always lead with curiosity. There should always be a question as your first thought, and oftentimes the first thing out of your mouth when you're approaching things, because there's typically are different layers than just the one that you're seeing at face value. And so it's so important as chambers and chamber executives when we are faced with a never ending parade of challenges and issues and needs from those that we serve to make sure that we're staying as effective and intentional as possible.
It seems like just throughout the world that there's a lot more tension than there used to be, whether it's politically or just how one sees the world. Um, so I think that's so important to be curious and learn, what makes somebody see from their perspective on whatever the topic is. And you can learn a lot, by asking those questions. And I think there really is an art to it because you can ask questions and, the recipient of the questions might think, well, she's kind of dense, for not knowing that
Yeah.
answer, or, this person's naive for asking this question. So how do you lean into the curiosity in that art form? Like, what are some of those things that you've learned in leaning into the curiosity?
I really love this question. And I first want to just clarify that I feel there's internal curiosity and external curiosity, and it's a careful balance of this. I want to make sure that we as chamber executives are internally being as curious as possible. Um, when you think you've asked all the questions, ask yourself one more time, okay, but what is the true issue here? Or what person is missing from this table? What is the true resource that would move the needle on this? And then if I don't have it, who is the best person to help leverage in this question? So I think those are the internal things that you're constantly trying to address. But when you externally, sometimes just the simple, can you help me better understand this? Or what I'm hearing is that correct? Just getting clarity of things, because uh, not only are we looking at a large volume of issues that we're trying to face as chambers, but the speed is very quickly picking up as well. And so slowing down the conversations to take the time to get to the root of things is so critical. And I have found myself when I say what I'm hearing is that correct? They'll say, "Oh, that's not quite what I meant, but let me help clarify." And because just think of how many times we assume we understood what was said, or we think we know where this is going, and that can not be the case. So by taking just a little bit of time with your questions to slow down the conversation, and be really intentional with the information, that alone is going to drive you in the right place. And um, this is not asking questions for the sake of asking questions. I want to make sure that's really clear. It's using questions to help you dig a little deeper, right? And fine tune your efforts and initiatives is really, really the goal here.
Yeah. I think the key, like you started off with, is that internal curiosity. That's going to
Hmm.
keep things authentic if you're really trying to get to the root of what's causing, a situation or an individual's thinking or perspective or whatever. If you are internally curious, it'll be authentic in getting to the right questions, getting to the root of what that causes.
Brandon, I
Uh,
can't emphasize that enough. I think that, it's so easy for us to take things at face value, or take the information that we're being handed, or read a newspaper headline or whatever it is. I think we have to take a moment to say, okay, but what else? What else am I not seeing in this first contact here, or this first interaction? What else should I be looking for or knowing or thinking about? Because as chamber executives, that's really critical. We represent such a diverse group, even within the business industry. And then you pepper in community dynamics, policy. It gets messy really, really fast. And I love that you used the word authentic, because anytime you stop being curious, that is typically when you veer off your path of authenticity. And that's usually when you become less effective and less impactful as a chamber of commerce. And in the toughest of moments, and you can't see the light, I think your curiosity is that beacon of, okay, what this is my little step forward. This is how I can continue to move forward in this situation. Because if you're so far off that path by just being reactive and not really getting to the root of things, it not only are you less effective, I think you can be damaging within your organization and community if you aren't really clear on what it is you should be doing instead of what it is you are doing.
Absolutely. Um, I was thinking, as far as how somebody views the world, it's interesting how people just in general will identify with certain things, whether it could be something, drastic like political alignment. I identify as this, and because of that, I'm going to make this stance no matter what, hell or high water, I'm making the stance. It could be something as simple as even a diet structure, that somebody follows, and they believe this is the only way to eat, to be healthy because this is what I do, and that's their worldview. And to understand that there's always multiple perspectives, there's always reasonings for both sides of whatever it is, and sometimes there's multiple sides. So being able
Well,
to lean in authentically is huge.
it's huge. I mean, when you compare it to, let's compare building a community to building a house. If everybody showed up on the job site and they all had the same perspective as the plumbers, that's what they did. They agreed on great plumbing and what type of piping and what type of faucets. The plumbing is going to be outstanding. The rest of the house is going to be very questionable. And we as a community need to make sure that we are also realizing that we're all coming together to a table to build something. And what we need to be doing is working together to create the best structure and outcome possible. The painters and the plumbers are going to disagree sometimes. And timing might be a challenge. And there's all these different things. But at the end of the day, they've worked together to create a really great product and a really great home. And I think we need to make sure as a community to be able to step back and make sure that we're having, disagreements of tasks and not of relationships. And that comes to really asking the questions both of ourselves and of our partners of, first of all, here's a really important question I ask all the time is, what is my role in this conversation? But also I say, what is their role in the conversation? I can't be holding them to an accountability level of a role that's not appropriate for their seat at the table. And it's funny how often we will do that and say, well, we're disagreeing, you should think differently. Well, that's their role, is that perspective, and we have to honor it and move forward with it. And it does bring you to better solutions, or at least better understanding
Yeah.
of where everyone lies in the conversation. So, um, uh, yeah, it's so important for us to take a step back and just really understand not just our own why, but everyone else's why, because um, the motives in the conversation are really going to be where everyone is operating out of.
Yeah, that is huge. And that's not something that I had considered before, is understanding what their why. I think a lot of people will understand what's my why, why am
Mhm.
I engaging in this conversation or whatever it may be. But to understand the other person's why, what their point of view is, what's bringing them to the table. And I don't know, for me to make sense of it, I think of, in a TV show when you see a courtroom, right? You've got the prosecutor and you got the defense, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, right? And but both sides have their role that they're working towards, and it's important to understand what that role is so you can come to some sort of agreement.
Absolutely. You would not want to be in a position where they were expecting you to shift off of your mission, your why, your unwavering advocacy for the business community. That's not something that you would want them to ask of you. And oftentimes we shouldn't be asking that of them. We have to recognize that, we each have parts to play and they're very different sometimes, and sometimes they're not. But it's really important to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love the analogy you gave of building a house, and you've got the different contractors building a
Mhm.
house. It reminds, I'd seen a reel a while back where, this person is impersonating different tradesmen as they come to a construction site and how they approach things, from the plumber to the electrician to the drywall guy and the painters and everything. And obviously it's coming from a skewed perspective of, a certain contractor not understanding the why for why the plumber's doing things the way they are or the electrician doing things the way they are. And it's kind of poking fun at them. But if you could get to the root of why they do what they do the way they do, it changes everything. And you could build a better house or you could build a stronger community.
It's
So,
so important. And I find myself often saying, what where am I most living in the uncomfortable? Because that tends to be where I either haven't been curious enough or haven't gotten to know that area enough. So there's clearly unanswered questions. And what's exciting is that gives me opportunity to say, you know what, to be great at what I do, I need to go explore that perspective. I need to either go spend time with them, I need to go witness firsthand what it is they're trying to communicate to me. I just need to have a better understanding and opportunity to ask questions outside of the heat of the moment, often outside of when we're trying to hash out solutions, but just tell me more about your perspective. And that way, when we are in the next conversation, you are that curiosity has led you to a more informed place. It could reinforce where you're at. It could shed light on where opportunities for collaboration are. It can also create opportunity for how you can leverage partnerships and work together. Because I didn't know you had that tool in your toolbox, and you have the hammer, I have the nails. Hey, why are we not working together? And so it's very rarely does anything bad come from being curious. I think that's just
right.
I've challenged when I thought about this conversation today. I was trying to say, are there any pitfalls of being curious? And I'm sure there are, but it's very few and far between, I would say.
Yeah, I think the pitfall would be is if you're not internally curious. If you're not focusing on
Absolutely.
that, that would be the big pitfall.
When you aren't, that's where it starts to get dicey.
Yeah. So I was thinking of it from the standpoint too of as you have a new business member, investor in your organization, to be able to just be curious about what they offer. Like you said, they've got the hammer, you've got the nails. What connections can we make? So it doesn't even have to come from a point of where there's tension at all. It can just be, I want to learn more about what you have to offer. How can we help you? And again, knowing what their role is and what your role is and trying to align those to, you know, build the perfect community, right? To build a stronger, better community and make those connections. That's what a chamber's all about. I love
There's
that.
no boundaries to how you can use this tool. That's what's exciting. It's a free tool. It's something that you can create as an asset. And I keep saying as a CEO or in chamber leaders, this should be something that you are including your whole team on in the journey. If your entire team is operating with this premise of being curiosity, to go back to your investor membership conversation, we regularly say that those conversations are more about us getting to know them than it is about them getting to know us. And if we walk away without having any conversation about what tier levels or opportunities are, that's okay. Because what we've done is we've been curious about their business and shown them that they matter, and we want to know about how they fit into this really important piece within the business community. We're already building a strong relationship with them. And that can be used on board members, volunteers. The more you get curious about what they need, what motivates them, you're much better positioned to serve that person or support that person. If you are operating off of what you think they need or think motivates them, you have a really good shot of missing the mark. And so, yeah, this is something that can be used all the time. Community partners, there's, use your survey tools. That's one of the biggest things you can do by just, it's funny how often I hear people say, I wonder what our members would feel about this. Ask them. Ask them.
Stop
Put out a
wondering.
5-question flash poll. Hey, how do you feel about this? I think sometimes we just discount the ability to just ask.
Yeah, I love that. So the idea of including your whole team, that just really resonates with me. It really doesn't move the needle if only the chamber executive is the one on board with
Mm-mm.
curiosity. If your team's not doing it, again, it goes back to authenticity, doesn't seem real, and you're not going to have all the touch points that the rest of your team has. How do we integrate that within staff, within the board, maybe even ambassadors? How do we integrate that curiosity and generate that movement is how I see it.
I'm so glad you asked that. I think first of all, you have to normalize it. There can be stigma about asking questions, and somehow it makes you seem like you're not paying attention or not skilled enough to handle the situation. We really have created a culture around the fact that the problem only comes if you're not asking questions. Are you asking for help? Are you asking how this connects with another teammate's work? Are you asking um, how our members could be benefiting from this, or who else might be interested in this resource? It, we try to ask ourselves, which is funny that I say that, but anytime we're doing something, it, we kind of say, okay, but what else? You think it's done, or you think that you've explored it. Yes, but what else? Like if you could push just a little further into that curiosity zone, what? And then it's funny how often say, "Oh, well, actually, I could explore something a little bit differently." Or it's amazing what just that little nudge over the edge will do. It also, by doing this as a team, I think it shows to our members and our board what our motives are. And it has created an atmosphere where they feel comfortable to come bring us information as well. So maybe we haven't outwardly asked for it, but because of how we have integrated this as a culture, they know that we're open to feedback and differing perspectives, even when we're not asking for it. So I think it's simply about incorporating it naturally into everything you do and making sure that everyone understands that the only time there should be concerns is when we as a group stop asking questions. And if someone is not asking questions, we need to kind of turn to them and say, is there something we could be doing to help support you in opening up this communication?
Yeah.
We always end and start and end every staff meeting with questions to each other as well. It's not just me, it's do you have any team? Do you have any questions for our marketing director? Team, do you have any questions? Marketing director, is there anything that the team could be helping or supporting you with instead of just waiting for it to happen? It's I'm opening the door, jump in. And it's really exciting to see that take off because they are, and they do it naturally, and it makes us all better because our organizations are not just the CEO. I think we know that, but it's
Right.
really easy to get into that mode. The organizations are every single person, volunteers, board members, your investors, and that's got to be something that everyone does.
Yeah, I love that. What else are we missing out of the art of curiosity? I feel like there's questions that I haven't asked. What are the things that are on the top of
I,
your mind?
the only thing that comes to mind is that a question asked once is not necessarily a question answered. And so don't be afraid to go back and ask again. And I'm just going to give this example. Our chamber, I'm very lucky to have inherited a chamber that is very strongly positioned. We had a CEO who was very well respected, and she was here for 35 years. And so I learned from one of the best in the industries. But being able to say, even though we know who we are as an organization and we really excel, who is it we want to be today? And that is actually something that at every strategic planning session, we say, okay, we know who we are now. Who do we want to be tomorrow? And I think that's something that can also be brought into other conversations. We know this workforce development strategy is working now, but what is it that our businesses need tomorrow? And so, as long as you're continuing to evolve your questions and go back and just check in on them, I think that's really important because answers can get stagnant. And that's again, you have now, as an organization, stopped being curious about how to be the best version of yourself. And we have to
Yeah.
continue to do that.
So maybe a 2.0 episode would be the art of asking the question, right? So you can be
There you go.
curious, but then there's a way of asking the question to where you can get the answer instead of, how are you doing? I'm good. There's a better question to be asked, right?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that. Well, Candace, for a chamber listening who's wanting to take their organization up to the next level, what kind of tip or action item or piece of advice would you share with them in trying to accomplish this goal?
I would say that you have to lean into the uncomfortable. Oftentimes, there can also be a fear about asking questions because they're like, oh, that means more work. Like, I don't want to know
I thought
what
there's
the
people
answer
out there that
is
are
going
saying,
to
I am
be.
not doing that, right?
I would say this, we're not asking you to turn over all the rocks right away. I'm just saying when that this is actually meant to be a tool to help lead you towards a more efficient uh, level of effectiveness, right? So start small, find a couple things that you can just get comfortable and see that, okay, two more questions actually didn't make it worse. It actually streamlined my path to a productive solution, or holy moly, I was completely going down the wrong path. Or I had an answer that was actually in search of a problem. There really is no problem here. I can pivot and now divert resources. So start small, find some things that you can just say, what if I just thought one layer deeper and go from there?
Yeah,
You'll
I like
find
that.
it will start to integrate itself into your life more and more.
I like that. So I like asking everyone I have on the podcast, as we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
Well, Uh, it's funny. I do tie it actually to this topic. I have felt and I see it more and more and more about our role as being that convening agent in our communities being our most important role that we play, especially with how divided everything seems to have a hard line drawn and people are picking sides. And what's unfortunate about that is it really does keep us away from true solutions for many of the challenges that we're facing as communities. And so I think it is important for us if we're not saying who's missing from this conversation or what is the true problem that we're trying to tackle here to make sure we're all aligned. Because gosh, if you think you're solving this problem and I'm solving this problem and we actually are in the same table trying to solve the same problem, we're not going to get very far. And so I think as chambers, we have to really, I would say, if you do nothing, do that. Be the person that's able to come to the table, bring people to the table. And if you're operating from that curiosity standpoint, you're curious on how we, as a group, can get to the best solution. And that's your motivating factor to be there, not to be the person that has a feather in their hat because I brought everyone to the table. It's I'm curious on how we can bring our ability to get everyone at the table and truly walk away making an impact. I think that's going to be something that we have to lean into because there are other resources for a lot of the other things that we're doing, but if we're not bringing people together to solve and navigate the barriers and burdens facing our businesses, we're not going to be effective.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great tip in how we look and navigate into the future. Candace, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who might want to reach out and connect with you, maybe learn more about your approach to curiosity. What would be the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
I always welcome anyone to email me. It's very easy to find me. It's just Candace at gjchamber.org. We do have a great website as well where you can find me, which is gjchamber.org. But I'm always happy to talk to anyone. And, this is this is hard work that we all do as chambers. And the more we can lean on each other and share information and opportunities, I think we're better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you spending time with us today and letting us, be a little curious about your approach and how you approach things there at the Grand Junction Area Chamber and just your work in general. I think it's a great way to have a perspective to learn more and to really allow you to serve your business community in a much better and elevated way. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
I really appreciate the opportunity and thank you for all that you do to keep us all tapped in on the important things facing our industry.
If you are a chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.